All right, this is our video report. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015. My name is Noah Olmstead.
I'm Andrew Hall.
I'm Katie Ward.
And we are talking about our video groups and we're wrapping up our final thoughts. To start off with the first question, each of us can state an important thing we learned from this group project. We're also going to state some metacognitive strategies that our partners used throughout their action of learning and how they learn here on campus at MSU. To start off with my partner, Yi Thang. Again, he's from Japan. He's a freshman like myself. After getting to know him and a couple experiences that we had together and talking about how we each separately learn in our classes at MSU, he's a hands-on learner. He does rehearsal and mnemonic devices when he studies for a test or gets ready for an exam. I find that easy as for myself and as well as him, so we were both able to relate to that.
My partner was Anthony Sanderson. He's a Jamaican-American student here. His metacognitive strategies tended to rely on rehearsal and repetition. One of the big things he mentioned was he would always create his own study guides and reviews for quizzes. That's something I can relate to. He seemed to be more of a self-learner, and while he would go to class and pay attention in lectures, for him, definitely the self-review and the self-creation of material really helped spark his learning.
My partner's name was Lulu Jin, and she was an international student from China. She was mostly a hands-on learner as well and related to teachers who were patient with her and showed an interest and paid attention to what she was saying. So she was mostly used rehearsal and repetition for when she would study for exams, and I think that's really important, and I could definitely relate to that too because I use the same strategies. So.
Moving on to types of motivation each of our partners had and why our partners had these types of motivation is the second question. My partner had intrinsic motivation coming from himself and why he was motivated to succeed. The main reason being he wants to get a degree from such an accredited university like Michigan State. I think that goes for a lot of kids saying they go here to get a college degree is very important. He also had some external motivation though as well. His family back home is kind of dependent on him to get a college degree, and for him to succeed, that's very vital. So I think both types of motivation, intrinsic and the external motivation, play a factor here for a lot of kids on campus too.
Anthony was very intrinsically motivated. Obviously, he came here, he doesn't want to waste his time, he's here to get his degree. And it wasn't so much just his degree or necessarily getting a high-paying job that was motivating him. He really wanted to be able to wake up at the end of the day and, further down the road, he wanted to have a job that he can really enjoy. So I think a lot of his success in school is attributed to that. He also found himself having a lot more fun enjoying some of his classes that weren't necessarily related to his major, specifically his theology classes and environmental classes. They weren't related to his major, but those were classes he tended to do well on, something he took an interest in. But that's not to say that his external motivations didn't impact him. His family had a lot of stress on him to, get good grades, make his family proud, show them that he could do what he needed to do and has what it takes. And obviously, at the end of the day, getting his degree and winding up down the road with enough money to support a family was also very high on his list. So, but yeah, mostly intrinsically motivated, all things to better himself.
My partner also had both intrinsic and extrinsic motivational factors come into play. Mostly, I would say external motivation, though, because she had a lot of external pressures from her family and her home culture to succeed while here. And she had intrinsic motivation because obviously coming here was a choice that she made for herself, so if she wasn't motivated to succeed, I don't think she would have come here in the first place. And at a prestigious university like MSU, she really wanted to succeed and show her family that she could be successful elsewhere. So,
Moving on to discuss the third question, some new thoughts we have in describing new perspectives that we have about our partners learning here on campus, and also how our partner interacted at MSU in a different learning environment. Um, some thoughts that I had about my partner and how he learned on campus. It was a lot different than how he learned at home. In grade school and high school, it's more hands-on stuff, and when you get to college and any college really, it's a lot of lecture hall, listening to the teacher, kind of bland, boring stuff at times. So I think there's a big change in that, and we can definitely appreciate the hands-on learning techniques and more interactive stuff when we are able to do that in class. And how our partner interacted at MSU in a different learning environment. Just getting to know new people and experiencing new friendships was definitely a difficulty for him. But him being here for the fall and spring semester of his freshman year, I think he's got a little bit more acclimated to the kind of culture here and how it's different from his at home.
Um, as far as new perspectives go, I think that once you're here, it really takes you a while to get adjusted and find out what you like and don't like about the learning styles here. Obviously, some classes like your WRAs are going to have maybe 30 to 40 people, while lecture halls might have, upwards of 300 to 400. In those lecture halls, it's very easy to not pay attention. You pull out your laptop, you pull out your phone, you end up on Reddit or Facebook or whatever, and you might not even pay attention to what's going on. And unfortunately, teachers don't have much to do to make sure students are kept in line, which it is still the student's responsibility. But obviously, he found that small classes were a lot more engaging because he was able to make meaningful relationships with the teacher. Perhaps got more face time when he got to raise his hand and interact and maybe ask questions. And again, that ties into elaboration, where he's able to not just regurgitate info and listen to it, but he's able to interact with everybody and talk to them and get new perspectives, and that really helped shape his classes and his performance, because he found that in those classes he was doing a lot better GPA-wise. So I think that just in general, I think that smaller classes tend to do a lot better job at getting the students interested in teaching them the material rather than just throwing everybody into a lecture hall.
My partner sort of struggled with the fact that there wasn't as much hands-on learning here as there was in some of her other classes at home. But I think that with her learning techniques and her learning strategies, like rehearsal and repetition, she was able to sort of study by herself and elaborate more on the materials to be successful. So I think that coming here from a different country, anybody is going to have issues with adapting to the new learning environments and learning styles. But my partner really succeeds because she goes above and beyond, and those new relationships she creates with people sort of help her out as well. So.
And wrapping up with our final question of our video report, explain what future teachers can do in the classroom and how that has related to our partner here during this global learning project. I think there's a few things that teachers can improve on, specifically talking about in college, but I also think some things that we do here at MSU are particularly helpful and that we should keep the same. Discussing some of the intangibles that teachers need in the classroom, I think are definitely the hands-on, the mnemonic devices. Those two things kind of go hand in hand. And I think that's a very effective way that a lot of people have found to learn and make the learning environment easier. Because right now it's a lot of the lectures, the TAs aren't really involved. And I think there's a few areas that can be improved on, but certainly there's a whole different perspective in a college lifestyle as opposed to grade school. And those are two definitely different topics. How those learning strategies have related to each of our partners. For my partner, hands-on has definitely been the way to go. But I think that we found that a lot of kids can adapt to different learning styles, and especially the lectures in college, and are still successful in any way.
I know with my partner, obviously, the small classrooms have been working. They're doing something right, and you can see that reflected through people's GPA and their attentiveness in general. Unfortunately, at such a large university, we don't always have the option to be in small classes, We're often limited to maybe 2 or 3 different sections, and each of those will just be jam-packed with 500 people per lecture. One of the ways that teachers can improve on that, they can have a more strict attendance policy, make students follow along with the course pack, and turn that in for points. I know it's a little bit extensive, but one of my professors, which I found was a very useful tool, he utilized the cameras in the lecture hall, and if he saw someone on their phone or their laptop, he would instantly blow them up onto the projector, and that would obviously embarrass people and get them off it right away. And another way to do that is to just get the TAs more involved. We have a lot of students here who are willing to TA a lot of resources. Maybe the teacher can't answer everybody's questions, but get the TAs walking through lecture halls, make them, interact and talk with everybody, make sure that they're getting what they need to be said out to everybody, and make sure that everyone's questions are answered, and really encourage that so you don't have students who are too afraid to ask in front of a lecture hall, or too afraid to stand out because they're just afraid that they're going to look dumb in front of 500 people. So I think just more interaction and making it more personal is a much better route to encourage success.
So I also think it's important to stress that in these big lecture halls, yes, you do sometimes have to listen or look at slides, but I think it's important for professors to understand that that's not the only way to teach certain information. They can provide specific examples from their lives or encourage other students to do the same as well. Also, as far as projects and exams go, I think that switching up the procedure to prepare for those as well can be helpful to students, and they won't have to focus on just one sort of review the entire class period. So I think that switching up the learning styles in the classroom is really important to cater to different students' learning needs and desires as well. And to sort of for professors to understand that communication is a two-way thing, and that it's not just the speaker's responsibility for the listener to understand. It goes both ways. So this, professors are more culturally comprehensive towards their students, and they'll be more successful in the classroom.
For all of us here in our group, we want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to do this video learning project. It's been a great way to reach out of our own cultural group, get to do something new. Thank you.